Hello and welcome to Politics here on France 24. Is there a mounting homegrown terrorist threat in France? This is the question rankling senior officials since the police gunned down a Frenchman who had thrown a grenade into a Jewish grocery store several weeks ago. A dozen alleged accomplices have since been arrested, and the French authorities appear to be very worried. So to talk about this new threat, or whether it is actually a new threat, we have three eminent specialists. To begin with Amel Boubaker, who's a sociologist with the École des études supérieures, des hautes études sociales, en sciences sociales, and the École nationale supérieure here in Paris. Also on the set, Mathieu Guider, who's a professor of Islamic studies at the University of Toulouse, and last but not least, Jean-Charles Brizard, who is a terrorist expert. They have all written books. You can see them appear on the screen as we speak. So let's take a look at what happened recently in France over the weekend.
France's crackdown on radical Islamists continues. Investigators arrested a group of people last weekend. They're suspected of attacking a Jewish store in a Paris suburb. With authorities looking into the suspects, the French Interior Minister fears that there could be several hundred people in the country capable of a similar attack.
The investigation must be rigorous. We must know more to know each suspect's role. There will probably, perhaps, be other arrests.
President François Hollande tried to calm fears. He pledged the parliament would soon be seeing new anti-terror laws.
Surveillance will be stepped up at places of worship because secularism, one of France's fundamental principles, entails that the state must protect all religions.
After a string of attacks across France, Jewish leaders fear that anti-Semitism could be on the rise.
We must repeat that it is a monstrous ideology, an ideology of hatred that can only be compared to Nazi ideology. Being indulgent towards radical Islamists is the same as being indulgent towards Nazis.
The French Council of the Muslim Faith has also condemned the attacks. Investigators think the threat is not from foreigners, but a surge in homegrown radicals.
So the police has also reportedly found a bomb-making material in the eastern Paris suburb of Torcy, and the Paris prosecutor says we are clearly and objectively facing an extremely dangerous cell. Jean-Charles Brizard, is this new, or have we seen this movie before?
No, it's not new. The police and intelligence services have been aware of that threat for several years now. We knew that the next threat we'll be facing will be internal threat versus foreign attacks. What is new in that specific case is the radicalization process, which is very short compared to other examples that we had in the past. This is due, for most part, to new accelerating factors, especially the prison, and most of all, internet, which plays as or provides all the tools for radicals, extremists, to mount, assail, and to prepare terrorist attacks.
Mathieu Guider, all the people, for now, the dozen who were arrested are under 30, many of them converts, all, if not of them, brought in France. Are you surprised by what Jean-Charles Brizard just described, the very quick radicalization that they went through?
Yes, the quick radicalization actually is almost ordinary now. It became almost ordinary. We had the case of Merah case in March 2000.
Mohamed Merah.
Who shot people in the area of Toulouse. Since this case, we had almost the same scenario that happened, which is people who went through the prison sometimes, and then who converted to Islam or to radical Islamism. And when they go in this conversion, they want to be more Muslim than the Muslims themselves. And this willing of being zealous in their action makes them become violent and go into terrorism. And this process is becoming more and more ordinary, actually, now in France. That's the problem.
Amel Boubacar, do you share that assessment? In that case, there was this attack on a grocery store. Allegedly, a list of Jewish institutions was found, but clearly this was not to the degree of Mohammed Merah, who went to kill soldiers, Jewish kids in a school, and ended up dying by fighting the police. So, or do you think we're at the same phenomenon here?
What is new and interesting is that this is the first time that actually, at least at the public opinion level, we are talking about a homegrown terrorist threat. We are realizing that these guys are not under the influence of foreign networks or related to any foreign events, but much more to their daily lives as French, converts or not, excluded or not. We are going to discuss it maybe later. But that's quite new, actually, to have the Ministry of Interior underlining that these guys are originally from French suburbs. So that's one thing. The second thing is that we should not put the emphasis on the fact that this radicalization is actually a phenomenon that happened before the engagement or the involvement within jihadi cells. Why? Because that's actually a quite classical process. Ones get radicalized for various reasons. I had an interview with someone, for example, who got radicalized because his girlfriend decided not to have an affair anymore with him, and then he turned to jihadi cells. So motivation can be quite diverse. So one gets radicalized and then is looking for a group that can contain him, and in that case, actually, jihadi Islam, or whatever how we label it, is for now the most fashionable extremist ideology that one can choose in this context of a French suburb.
Right, Jean-Charles Brissard, but in terms of how this is organized, generally you had people who were recruited by professional, quote-unquote, terrorists. They were trained abroad in Pakistan, maybe now in the Sahel region, but here it appears it's totally new. They might not even be related to known terrorist networks.
That's true. As this has been said just before, those individuals who are converted, they're in a situation where they are searching their own identity. So they're very much influenced. They can be very much more influenced than others. And this is why you have extremist preachers who come to them and try to recruit them. So the recruitment is, I may say, at this stage now. When the people get into...
They're not self-recruited, if I may say.
Exactly. Now they are self-radicalized, that's true. But to turn now into what they wanted to do, meaning reaching combat zones, including Syria, for example. We know that there were many contacts between the cell and Syria. Then you need a network. You need a contact with foreigners, and that's what happened. They had a lot of electronic contacts, telephone contacts with external jihadists. Especially, they wanted to go to Syria through UK and Spain.
Right,
as we know.
But in that case, isn't this more that they are looking to go rather than people from there trying to get them to come?
Yeah, the shift is there. We have no more tourists coming from outside to France because they have no possibility to do it, because the security services are doing their job, because there is a good cooperation between countries and between all these services. So now it's more about jihadists who are homegrown and who want to go abroad to what they call the jihad lands, such as Syria, such as Afghanistan, such as Iraq, and now such as North Mali. So this change of conception and of perception of jihad is affecting now the French society and has some echo within the youth, the people who are marginal sometimes, and especially who have a criminal background. And this is new, because in the past we had some jihadists who will, for example, rob money or rob some banks, and then they use this money to do jihad or to do these activities of jihad. Now we have criminals who will shift, who will go into jihadi status, who will become jihadists, thinking that it's better for them to be jihadists than to be robbers, for example, or something. These two phenomena are new, and they are today scaring the whole security apparatus in France.
Right. Do you agree with that? Because it's more difficult to find a petty thief or a cocaine dealer, as apparently the man who was shut down was, morphing into a homegrown threat.
That's very true that they can go abroad, they can have contact with other foreign movements, jihadi movements, but at the base, their motivations are very much French-related. This is because of their lives, their daily lives are French, frustrated for various reasons, that they are going to choose this group and they are going to choose this ideology. And they are quite fascinated by the gun culture that is offering to them in this milieu. So gun culture has I would say, a much more important role than religious debate on what the Quran is saying or not about the jihad or about violence. So this delinquent past is actually quite logical. And
if I may, there may be a new element. Maybe it's just extrapolating, but Mohamed Merah clearly targeted a Jewish school, and they apparently were targeting a Jewish grocery, it happened, and possibly Jewish institutions.
That's also quite related. In the interviews that I had, again, when they designed Jewish, and actually they talked much more about Zionists or allies of the Americans or this kind of labels, they talk about the enemies. They talk about an enemy that is powerful. They don't talk about Jewish as a religion or as believers. They talk about people that they imagine, again, in their self-narratives to be quite powerful and that they imagine to be responsible of their dominated situation. And they are not often targeting Jewish as a religion or as religious believers. And they are targeting in the same way the Americans because they are powerful. And that's a willingness also to be at the same level of these people that they imagine to be powerful. And suddenly with while choosing violence, they can considering themselves to be hearable, to be visible, and to be in the place, to be in the public space as jihadi in front of those that they imagine to be the enemies.
Do you agree with
I must disagree on the idea that common idea now, idea that there's a logical link between criminals and terrorists. This is not the case. This is the case more often now in Europe, but this is not the case in the Middle East and Asia, for example. This is due to the fact that in Europe we have small cells, small networks that needs to raise money, indeed, as Mathieu said, and those individuals will come to means of the criminal type that we have at work in Europe. But it is not logical that they'll be related or they will share any ID. On the one side, you have people fighting for their ideology. On the other side, you have people fighting for criminal purposes. The second fact is, regarding the threat that you were speaking about, you should not forget that there's today, according to the intelligence services, there's 1,000 French men abroad in combat zones or in training zones, including Yemen, Waziristan, Sahel region, Syria, Libya, Somalia. And this is yes, and this is a real concern because those people do not become dangerous when they go there. They become dangerous when they come back to France, and when they might have the will to continue the jihad on the French soil. So this is another concern for the French intelligence.
About the motivations, I think that we should distinguish between the mobiles, which are psychological, the motivations, which are ideological, and the triggers of the action, why he will become to be radical at some point. For the mobiles, which are psychological, I think that in the code of the jihadists, they have this hatred of Zionists, of Jewish. This is obvious. We have it in all publications, in all what they say, and especially in the targets. So this is from a long time. It's obviously related to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, of course, but on the French soil, in France, there's no link with this option. It's only psychological. They focus on this community because Mohamed Merah focused on it, and it's really new. This new surge in anti-Semitism in France.
And they have the hatred of other Muslims as well, actually. We often don't talk about this mobile, but they are often rejecting the whole Muslim communities that are not choosing jihadi, because we have also to say, of course, we often say that these are only a minority, which is true, but they often fail to say that they are quite promptly and deeply rejected by the majority of Muslims. So they often act in an isolated way. And for example, the Ministry of the Interior calling for denunciation or calling for the parents' duty to inform the police about the mobiles or the radicalization that they may observe among their children. I'm not sure that this will be a workable option, because I mean, first, they cut themselves from their family, from their original religious environment. So it's quite difficult, actually, to understand that they are going through a radicalization process if we focus only on religious visible signs.
Is this really, Jean-Charles Bouzard, a very big worry for security service, the lone wolf or the self-radicalized? Because there's no way, really, you can detect them.
There's been not much of examples of pure lone wolves, I may say, because even Mohamed Merah, for example, who was first referred as lone wolf, was not indeed a lone wolf. He was in contact with foreign terrorist groups. He actually trained in Waziristan. So no, the real concern is, as it was said just before, it is a minority, but it's a loud minority. If you go today on the internet, you'll see violence expressed, you'll see calls to kill French or Jewish people in France. And this is common today, as we speak, through the jihadist forums, through the social networks. So this is, for me, the real concern, is to cut their base, their ideological base.
Okay, we have to end it here. I'm sorry, obviously it's an interesting debate. I wish we had more time, but we'll do this on another occasion. Thank you to all of you, and thank you for watching Politics here on France 24. We'll see you next week.